Of course, there's plenty more Contra games, and maybe some other time I'll go in depth with the bad ones. There could always be a new Contra game coming out, and it might meet my approval or might not. But it seems even with the best games nowadays, no matter how good, nothing will ever surpass my experience with those first two Contras on NES.
And why is that? I don't know. And when compared to all the NES turds I've dissected, like Akari Warriors, Raid 2020, and Rambo, it begs the question, was Contra the standard? Or was it so far above standard, so exceptionally magnificent, that it made all the others suck?
In that same way, I wonder if the past set an unreasonable standard for the future. Do we hold our childhood so dear because it was better, or just familiar?
When I think back to Contra, I'm not just remembering the 80s, I'm remembering that time in the 2000s when I was remembering the 80s. It's a memory that's been photocopied countless times. It's been through many filters and distortions. There's even major holes when I forgot about Contra for a bit.
You know what happened to my original cartridge? I sold it. I sold it. Sometime after the N64 came out, I took a handful of my games and I brought them over to the local Funkoland. They offered me $7 for Contra, and I accepted. You know what I did with that $7? I went over to the deli and bought a sandwich. To this day, I'll never remember any details of that sandwich. Did it have lettuce? Was it any good? I don't know. Today, if you were to ask me, hey, you remember that sandwich? I'd say, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
But Contra, that sticks with me. And even if I had to part with it for a while, sometimes you have to temporarily forget about something before you fall in love with it again. And when you come back to it, it's the same as it was, even though everything else has changed. Life has changed. The world has changed. But sealed in that plastic slab is a time capsule of your youth, fossilized in ROM data on a circuit board. It's read-only memory, the type that doesn't change. As soon as you pop that fucker in your NES, you're back. You're back to an innocent summer day with no such thing as internet. Instead, you and your friends are running around with Nerf guns and super soakers, pretending you're the guys from Contra. You're standing on a swing, holding onto its chains like a ladder of a helicopter. You jump off, rolling into the grass, the jungle. If it's not that, you're setting up G.I. Joe figures in the mud to stage epic battles. That skill you had of creating a fantasy land out of nothing, that wild imagination and backyard adventure was fueled by those pixelated military dudes blasting away alien creatures and robots. That's what Contra's all about. And maybe you lost touch with those old friends, but when you play that game once more, you think of them again. And maybe, just maybe, somewhere in some part of the world, they're remembering it too, almost as if they're still sitting on the living room floor beside you. And maybe you had a grandparent or family member who you lost, and they're still watching you play.
Even as strangers, we can have a shared connection of talking about old games, and that is nothing to be angry about. That joy in its simplest form comes down to simply asking someone, hey, remember Contra? And the answer is fuck yeah.